Yeah, so like I would tell my wife every year, this is going to be the year that it shits the bed. I'm optimistic, but I'm more of a realist. At some point, the music's going to stop. And I feel like at this point in my career, I'm going to be fine.
Hey Ramblers, before we start today's episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on the latest episodes, interviews, and all things startup. This episode, like every episode before it and after it, is brought to you in part by OffSource, your affordable one-stop solution for outsourcing all of your office work. If you or your team are constantly waitlisting important tasks for any reason, you're doing your company a disservice. Get the support you need by outsourcing to OffSource tasks like HR support, admin, bookkeeping, social media, graphic design, web design, and so much more. You can go to the link in the description and visit offsource.tech. This is The Ramblings. Hey guys, welcome back to another wonderful episode of The Ramblings. I'm your host today, Angelo Roberts. I have today with us Trad Bastian of Bastian and Associates, powered by Keller Williams Realty. He is a real estate agent. We are going to get into so much today. We have not had a real estate agent on the podcast in a very long time. And with things heating up in 2024, we have a lot of things going on. So Trad, introduce yourself, give us a little intro, why we're listening to you, and give us a little speech about yourself.
Yeah, man. So Tread Basham in Charleston, South Carolina, born and raised. Um, go back like six generations as far as I know, and realtor development. Been licensed since 2007. Seen a lot. Don't know it all. Still learning every day, and really enjoy what I do. And trying to build the business out so I can do less of the day to day transaction stuff and more of the high level business building aspect of it.
Okay. Now, one of the big things that we always love to talk about on this show is how people actively got into into their industry, into the business. So give us a small, brief timeline of how long it took for you to get into real estate, when you knew that, this is what I would like to do, and when did you get started, and what were some of those first steps you took?
Yeah, so I was in college. It was probably my junior year, I think, and my dad and I were in Memphis for the Memphis in May barbecue contest, and we ended up at Waffle House after cooking all day. And he goes, "So what are you gonna do?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like for work." I was like, "Man, I'm getting this business management degree, but honestly, I don't know." He's like, "Well, you ever thought about real estate?" I was like, "I mean, you and Papa had done it. I figured I'd probably give it a shot, but I want to make it through college first." He's like, "Yeah, you're over 18. You can get your license whenever you want." I'm like, all right. So that summer that summer I took the first licensing course, got my temporary license, I guess is what they called it, and then I did my post licensing class, and after I graduated in '07, and 08 happened obviously, and the market kind of took a dump, and so I love my dad, but he gave me some horrible advice about getting another job while the market was down, when I should have been doubling down on learning and taking that time to understand the industry better so that I could have been better positioned to take advantage of that 2009, 10, 11, where the prices were so depressed that, if you bought back then and sold now, you'd be sitting on millions of dollars. I mean, it was insane. So,
Right.
so I did property management, worked at AT&T call center, um, did construction. I did bike taxi, uh, bounced. I mean, anything and everything to pay my bills. I didn't last long as the AT&T call center. That was brutal. Um, and then around 2010, I went back to school to get my MBA from the Citadel. And when I graduated, I just I needed to get off the pot with the whole real estate thing. I was like, I strapped myself with debt, so I needed to make money. I was still doing bike taxi at the time, just so it was fun. Made some easy cash. And then my first transaction was actually with my grandfather, which I thought was really cool because he absolutely did not need me, me as an agent. Um, he had 60 years seniority on me all day long, and so after that, after I got that commission check, I was like, I'm quitting everything else. I'm focused on this. So that was
Right.
like 2013. Yeah, 2013. Um, and then ever since then, it's evolved, it's devolved. The team gets built out. You lose someone, you have to build it out again. But it's been an interesting ride to say the least. And I've had really good years, and I've had some not so great years, or not as good as other years. So it's a little bit of an up and down. I'm trying to get that trajectory to kind of stay steady going up. But that's the one thing about any business, I think, is you're going to have those ebbs and flows of business, and it's just trying to make them steady.
I like what you said there in regards to being at your grandfather. He didn't need you, right? I come from a family business as well, where some of my first sales were obviously to the members of the family, where you can make it, because you just need to get those wind under your sails. And as you said, when you saw that first commission check, you're like, oh, this is what I need to focus in. And I guess I'm just going to preface this for this question is how much older is your dad than you?
He is 20, good question, 25 years older than me.
Okay, so good amount. As things have gotten later on, my dad's like 33 years older than me. Nowadays, dads are like, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years older. So your dad had a
Yep.
good amount of years on you at this point in life. And so I would like to kind of break down when you realized it was bad advice that your dad was giving you, even though it may not have been like, was it bad advice overall, or was it just bad advice for his time? Was it outdated? When did you really break down and realize that, okay, I kind of have to start going on my own intuition, my own intellect, and that this was a mistake from listening to my dad?
Yes, I mean, it's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know. So at the time, it sounded like a great idea. It's like, hey, I got to pay my bills, so I need a job.
Mhm.
What I think, if I could go back and tell myself what I know now, I'd have been like, hey, yes, you need that job, but instead of having as much fun as you did, why don't you learn more about the industry that you're trying to get to? Because I went to the beach 3 days a week. I had a blast in my 20s. It was a great time. I did not net much wealth, but I had a lot of fun. So I don't regret it, but I also feel like I hindered myself, and I would be further along now than I am now. So it is what it is. But I would say it was a while. It took a while for that to really kind of click, because again, you don't know what you don't know. So once I got out of grad school and started making money with real estate sales, I was like, why did I not do this earlier? And again, that whole '08 to 2012, call it, was a weird time in the market. And Charleston rebounded a lot faster than other areas, because we had a lot of investors coming in and seeing that the values were depressed and that there was opportunities there. So 2013-14, the investors started really coming back in pretty strong. And then after that, the consumers came in and started buying and selling again. So I would say I didn't recognize it as bad advice until later on. So it wasn't one of those things where I was like, oh man, that's really crappy advice, Dad. Thanks. But it took a while to get there. And he wasn't meaning for it to be bad advice. He was just trying to make sure I was keeping my bills paid and afloat
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. So I get it. But yeah, so that was, and then when I graduated from grad school, he had moved to upstate, so Greenville. And when he did that, I was like, well, I need to get a different brokerage. And so I did. And then when I made that transition to a different brokerage, I immediately started selling. Now, I don't, not putting that on him is why I didn't sell anything, but he was focused on commercial. And then I ended up shifting and going to residential,
Mm.
which has been great for me. I like the commercial aspect. I'd like to get into that a little bit later once I've got the residential built out and running itself, um, or hire someone onto the team that handles primarily commercial. My dad was doing that for the team and is still kind of doing that for the team, but he's more focused on another business venture that we partnered on. That's a
Oh,
little bit
so
faster.
do you partner with your dad in a lot of different other avenues in life?
Yeah, so he and I were very similar, growing. Like our trajectory was very similar as far as like sports. Hunting, fishing, whatever. I mean, we both like to be outdoors, very similar in that regard. And then business wise, he was in commercial real estate for, I mean, he's been in it for over 40 years. So when I was on his team initially, and then when he moved back from Greenville, he joined my team. So it came full circle. And I kind of noticed that he was getting, I mean, we had like, I don't know, $38 million in transactions lined up for two deals that he had under contract, and unfortunately, both of them kind of petered out because it's land development. It takes years, and there's anything that can change. And there was I can't remember what it was. It was something about the density in the project was lessened because of wetlands. So they did a wetland survey, found out they couldn't get, say it was 800 units, they could only get 600 units. Well, that changes the price because you're doing it per door essentially. So we had to go back, and then we ended up losing that contract because they wouldn't agree to the counter. So when I saw that, I was like, man, that would have been a big payday. I mean, that would have been, $300,000, give or take. But it never materialized. So I was like, I was already looking for other industries or other businesses that kind of correlate to real estate. So like gutter companies, landscaping companies, something that I could easily send clients to and then make a small piece, because I didn't want to run it. Right. I just wanted to set it up and then collect, a percentage.
Back end kind of thing, like a landscaping. Hey, we just got you into a new house. Sign up with this landscaping company for a year. That's an extra little cash flow.
Yep, and or just be part of the owner of the company, but be like a silent partner and help fund it, and then just collect a percentage of the net proceeds or the gross profit or whatever we did it. But so what I ended up finding, I kind of stumbled onto this because I was looking at different franchises, and we found this one called We Sell Restaurants. Well, my dad was big into barbecue. We were at Memphis in May. He was competing in the barbecue contest, so he knew the restaurant world. He had managed a high-end restaurant. He kind of got burnt out on commercial for a little while. I think for like 2 years he ran a restaurant. So he already knew the lingo. He already understood that. I was like, is this something you would be interested in doing? And the paydays were faster. I mean, they were like, 60 to maybe 180 days versus 3 years. Right. So he was like, yeah, that's interesting. Let's go talk more. And so we ended up eventually buying into the franchise. And now he and his girlfriend are running the day-to-day, and we own it 50. I own 51%, but we split the profits 50-50. So so it's working out so far. They had probably close to 100,000 plus in commissions in the last 2 months. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's very similar to real estate. It's all about relationships. So you're developing those relationships, you're building it, or you're just marketing. You're throwing tons of money at marketing. So I personally like to build things slowly, make sure that it's natural or organic growth, so you're not getting ahead of your skis. And his girlfriend wanted to hire on another agent like week 5, and I was like, no. We're not going to hire on anybody else. We need to get a handle on what we're actually doing, and then we can start bringing other people in to train them and get them, rolling, and have enough business to support another mouth, So, anyways, that's been good. He doesn't do as much commercial. I mean, anything that comes in my door, I usually either send it to him or I'll work it with him, if he's not available to do it. So it's been good. It's one of those things where it's kind of weird because it's your dad.
Right. No, I was going to say, only because my dad being in business and him being in real estate, very much small time, not anywhere near as that. He's in the rental business. Is he obviously having 3 sons, wanting to continue on the real estate legacy, but instilling in us that entrepreneurship. So we each kind of spun out and done our own, are doing our own thing, and we'll eventually, I guess, come back to the real estate. But you kind of stuck with it all the way through. Do you consider yourself what are the hard points of the relationship with your father in terms of business, and where do you have to draw that line of distinction? Like, when did you get to be the leader of the pack? Like, was it when he came to your ship? Was it when you decided to leave and he was like, okay, you're on your own, maybe I can take your advice? When did he start giving you that respect of that your knowledge brought?
I think it was I would say, so when he moved, I kind of was just like, this doesn't make sense. I mean, like, I love you, but like, you're not providing me anything from a brokerage standpoint besides hanging my license with you and not charging me anything, which I found another brokerage that basically charged me $200 a month. And I got access to more things. And it was more of a residential brokerage versus his being a one man show commercial deal. So I would say, I don't know how long after I was like how many years I was in business where I felt like he saw that I knew what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like I would talk through stuff because I'd call him about questions of either because I dabbled in some commercial stuff and realized really quickly it's a whole other monster. You really need to have your finger on the pulse because you're not going to be able to go to MLS and find everything that's available for commercial, which is a little bit of a crutch for residential agents because there's a lot of like right now there's low inventory. So you got to get creative about finding homes for your clients, which I've done. It just takes, more effort. Same thing with commercial, but commercial, you're getting, hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially on some of these deals. They just take longer to mature. So I would say probably 5 years into like full-time sales. So roughly like 2017, 2018. And he moved back around 2019, I guess, 19 or 20. So about that time, we had been, having conversations, via phone mostly because he was 3 hours away. But when he got back, like I could tell he was asking more questions. And again, it didn't fully relate because he's doing commercial, I'm doing residential, but we could still talk through some of these, projects that he was working on. And I was looking to him going, hey, listen, if you find a builder that doesn't have their own sales team, we can do that. My team can handle that. So there was some symbiotic relationship there. It never materialized because he already had builders that had sales reps, so it didn't really work out that well. But it was something we kind of talked about, and he, that's all he ever really did or his main focus was residential and commercial development. So the sales side of it, he did like he would do lot sales, back in the '80s, but working with a smaller builder that wasn't like regional or national, they may not have a sales staff. So that's where I was thinking, well, we find the right builder, then I can come in with my team and we can basically be their on-site sales reps. Right. But yeah, so I think I would say like 5-6 years, give or take, in the business is where I kind of shifted to me being more knowledgeable and being comfortable, speaking my mind on topics that I understood better and was able to like articulate my thoughts around why I felt that way or why I thought a certain thing. And I could tell that he was just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Instead of like questioning it, telling me to do his way, you know what I mean? It's just, I came into my own and he was there kind of right around that time.
Do you have any siblings?
I've got a brother and a sister.
Okay, perfect. So are you also the oldest?
I am the oldest, yes.
Okay, team oldest right here. So
that's right.
One last question before I get into a lot of technical stuff. That's going to be like the boring stuff. But the last question I would like to get in personally is, when did you realize, before your dad realized, that you knew something? Like, when did your dad give you a piece of advice and you're like, that's not right, I'm not going to listen to that one. Like, I am going to trust myself. I kind of not know more than you, but am more up to date with what's current and what I am trying to do.
Well, see, early on, honestly,
teenage years, you're like,
not quite that early. I mean, he had a saying. He's like, you can either do it my way or the hard way and figure out which one hurts worse.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, right. So I learned early on that he knew more than I did, and I had my moments of I'm sure that I bucked the system. But as far as like getting to a point where I felt comfortable with my career, it is a little different because the commercial and the residential world are so different as far as how you approach it in certain respects. I mean, it's still all relationships, but how you navigate certain things is just done differently in the different industries. So it wasn't apples to apples, but there were certain things where I would say probably like year 3 or 4 where I had kind of gotten to a point where I was consistently having closings every month, and it wasn't like this, roller coaster of income where I'd go 3 months without making a sale. Because the first year, I think I did like, I don't know, 10 or 14 transactions, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I feel like that. Oh yeah, those are like rookie of the year numbers. I feel like for first year of real estate transactions.
It depends, man. I've seen some that blow me out of the water. There's always a bigger guy. There's always a better, faster runner, But I was happy with it. I mean, it was more money than I ever made in my life, and I was ecstatic and ready to roll. And I basically was getting to a point where I was doubling every other year. So like I think I did like roughly 2 million the first year in volume, and then 2.5 million, and then hit the 4, and then 4.5 million, and then went to 8. You know what I mean? So it was not consistently doubling, but as I was building out my team, I was shifting my focus from the transaction side to working on my business. So my income suffered a little bit while I was, basically pulling back the bow, getting ready to shoot the arrow, which unfortunately I've had to do more than once. So it is what it is.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say for me, it was more so about my peers and seeing how some agents were really good at what they did and wanting to be more like them and gain their respect. Because I also saw agents that were really bad at what they did, and I did not want to be them, and I did not care about what they thought of me because they didn't know what the hell they were doing. So and that's every industry. I mean, there's, you look at mechanics, there's really good mechanics and there's really shitty mechanics. So it's the 80-20 rule. I wanted to be the 20, not the 80.
Okay. Now we've discussed a lot, and the reason I say that is because I wanted to get a feel for your experience and your passion in regards to real estate. To see you seem to be stuck with this and in it, but your experience has gone through 2 down cycles. You said you kind of got started in 07, then 08 to 012 was crazy, which is a downturn. But then we just recently had the 2020 to 2024, which for a lot of real estate agents was an upturn. What was the 2020 to 2024 market for you like? And was it something where you had to learn how to control volume, where you had to say no to certain things? What were the things that you learned in 08 to 012 that you brought into 2020 and 2024? And what were the things that were like, I have to scratch this. This is new. This is a completely different beast because, it's an uptick and not a downturn.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing for me was I didn't really do a whole lot of sales, but from 08 to 2012. So I really wasn't in the business. I was doing property management. But I had agents that I knew, and there was a lot of short sales. There's a lot of foreclosures. There's a lot of different things that people had to learn on the fly to make it. And a lot of agents fell out in those years. And then from like 13 on, the agent count just started growing. As far as the market, or as my experience from 2020 to now, essentially, 2020 was weird, man. It started out gangbusters, and then COVID hit, and everything got shut down, and there was just like this. It was this eerie quiet. Like nothing happened for like 3 weeks because everybody was waiting for it to go back to normal, which obviously it didn't really do. But then personally, we had bought a partially burnt house in 2018 and tore down to 3 exterior walls and 60% of floor joists and rebuilt a house. And we had a lot of equity in that house just because we were able to do it, not ourselves, but we had a contractor, and we got pre-COVID pricing. So everything was cheaper. So when we came out on 2020, I'm looking at this going, okay, this is the end of the cycle, right? So real estate usually cycles every 7 to 8 years, whatever. We've been running pretty hot and heavy for longer than that. I'd say closer to 10. We've had small downturns, with the interest rates dropping and COVID kind of started a little bit, and then it spiked, and then the interest rates shot it back down. But the pricing hasn't gone down. It's just the number of transactions has. So I would say the reason I mentioned the house was I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and we got a HELOC on the house, and the appraisal came back, $45,000 over what I thought it would sell for, and I was right. It sold for 685 instead of 725. But what my wife was like, why do you want to sell? Like, because if I don't sell another house for 2 years, we can live off this money. And I just, we didn't have a ton of debt. And so basically our mortgage was the only debt that we had, and maybe like a small credit card bill here and there. But all our cars were paid off. Everything else was paid off. Her student loans were paid off. Mine were paid off. So that was all we had. So I was like, man, let's just scrap all this debt, take the cash, and then see what happens. And then we rented a place for about 6 months, and the market didn't tank like I thought it was going to. I don't think anybody really saw that coming initially. And then
What was
as it started,
your thought when you saw things to continue going up after that 6 months? I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
That during that period when you saw, hey, oh, these things are still jumping. Like, what was your thought? Did you think, okay, there has to be something to bring this down, or did you think like now is the time to get in and maybe sell some other the stuff that we might have on inventory?
Yeah, so I mean, like, I would tell my wife every year, like, this is going to be the year that it shits the bed. So, I mean, I'm optimistic, but I'm more of a realist. I mean, like, at some point, the music's going to stop, and I feel like at this point in my career, I'm going to be fine. We may have some tight months, but we're going to make my sphere of influence as far as my database and all that kind of stuff with my business is going to support my lifestyle to an extent. I mean, obviously I still have to work it. It doesn't just come to me, but I wasn't super concerned, but you never know. I mean, it's 100% commission. So, I mean, like, every day you wake up unemployed. So I would say as the things were starting to go, I was just dumbfounded, especially the price points, because it went, I mean, like from 2021 to 2023, like beginning of 2023, I would think.
Woo! My mom
was 40%
to buy a house during that time. I think she was outbid, and she's not a cheap person. She, would bid overpriced. She just recently bid on something in North Carolina, 12,000 overpriced. Someone came in, offered more, but on like 12 different properties, people were overbidding by like 20%.
Yep, it was insane, man. And that's so talking about learning from the past, and then that era I don't think had ever happened, not like that. So it was new for a lot of people, and it was great as a listing agent. Excuse me, I was great as a listing agent because you put it on the market and you're going to get 20 offers, and then you just got to pick which one, But for the buyer side, man, it was tough. It was tough for me to see the disappointment from the clients, because like that's the exciting part for me. I had somebody go, "What's the best part of like the transaction?" He was like, "Getting paid." I'm like, "No, that shit's supposed to happen. If I've got them under contract, we're closing." Like, there's very rare instances where we don't. Obviously, things happen and deals fall out, but not a lot. Because you can I mean, I had one right today, literally. We were stuck on a $15,000 credit because there was polybutylene in the house, and she was like, "Well, I've never had any problems getting insurance." And I was like, "Okay, cool. I'll just call your insurance provider and we'll just get insurance through them, and it'll be a non-issue." Well, her insurance carrier didn't realize they had polybutylene in the house, and she's like, "We're gonna have to drop her." I was like, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I mean, I didn't mean to do it at all.
Right.
But so I mean, like, so the buyer's disappointment was frustrating for me because you're doing everything you can, and there's a certain point where it's like, this is kind of reckless. I mean, like, how much can you take? How many contingencies can you take out of the contract and still protect your client? And how high do you go? I mean, nobody knew.
Right, because
that was
you said it's uncharted territory. Sellers market in a way that People were
has never
accepting
happened.
ridiculous terms.
Well, and that was the thing it was tough for me coming from 2013 to 20, call it 2020. It was a more normal-ish market. We had, you know, 7 to 9,000 units available in our Tri-County area. Now we're hovering around 3,000. We're still a third of what we used to be pre-COVID. And during COVID, I mean, we got down to 900 units in the entire MLS in our Tri-County area, which is insanity. Like
Right.
there,
Oh
there
my
was
gosh.
there was nothing. There was nothing. So it was just a different. It was a lot of people looked at that time as easy money because there were so many people transacting. I would say it was easier for a new agent to get in and like get their career jump started because there was just so much deal flow.
Okay.
But it was hard in that you still have to understand how to present an offer and get it accepted. And when you're having 20, 30 offers you're going up against, I mean, like, you know, one, I'm trying to protect my client so they don't buy a lemon and then sue me on the back end because they're like, oh, you told me not to do the inspection. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I've never said that to anybody.
No,
We
I
can do
did
the
hear some
inspection.
people get burned by
Oh,
not by just like they said, no inspections, nothing as is cash,
yep.
and they
And
got burned.
exactly. Because listen, man, houses are not perfect. Especially, and if you're buying new construction, it still isn't perfect, but it's more perfect than. I mean, I was at a house today, and it happened to be a house that my foundation guy had run a quote on for some water mitigation, and I was like, "Listen, man, I saw your name on this sheet that this invoice that they had in the MLS. Did you go underneath the house because there was a soft spot in the kitchen?" He's like, "Oh, that crawl space is totally screwed. It is a giant, I'm like $20,000 screwed or $50,000 screwed, like 50 plus. Like there's a ton of work that needs to be done under that house." And I went and looked at it this morning, and my the agent that listed it goes, "Hey man, I just got an offer for 800,000. Well, it was listed for 765." I was like,
Whoa.
okay, why did they go over unless they're asking for a giant credit back? And I'm like, just so you know, there's some foundation issues. Like, well, we'll figure out during the inspection. I was like, okay, well, y'all have fun with that. I'm not buying it. But so yeah, so I mean, like, I instead of getting rid of the inspection contingency altogether, what we would do is go, hey, listen, how much risk are you willing to take? And it depends on the price point. And, you know, looking at the house ahead of time and going, okay, HVAC's old, roof's old, water heater's old, windows are old. Those are 4 big ticket items that you're going to probably need to take care of, at least the roof and the wind or the roof and the HVAC for sure, relatively soon. So we know that this house doesn't have any of those issues. Let's say we won't ask for anything under $5,000. Now, if there's a big like structural issue that's going to be $20,000, the seller doesn't have to pay the first 5, but they've got to pay the 15 after. And so that was a way to get around being a little bit more attractive as a buyer without losing the contingency entirely. So it was that kind of thing where, you know, and I learned a lot from my peers. I mean, I would have conversations with other agents and like, hey, listen, how are y'all navigating this? Because, you know, it was all new to, you know, I don't think anybody's lived through that kind of market. I mean, I talked to a lot of agents that have been in the industry for 30 plus years, and they're like, Trev, I've never seen anything like this before, ever. It is insanity. And you just had, I mean, Charleston is a destination spot. It's been a vacation spot for people, you know, for, you know, decades. But once COVID happened and you could work from home, everyone was like,
in the
why
South?
in the hell? Yeah, why in the hell am I living in the cold north when I could be living in the South near a beach and make the same money I was making in New York or Boston or whatever, working from home? So now you have all this money coming in from these bigger cities that they're selling a, you know, 1-bedroom condo for $1 million and coming down here and they can buy a 4,000 square foot house.
Right.
You know,
especially if you understood you got out fast, your company was first to adapt to that. Oh,
yep.
yes. Oh, man, I've loved talking to you. You're one of the more easy to talk to real estate agents. I feel like a lot of real estate agents try to force the sale over just a regular kind of conversation. And you have shown, especially the reason kind of like why I do this podcast is to show the relatable and repeatable. My personal biggest takeaway, only because I'm of the youth, is that you openly admitted that you fucked around in your 20s. And being, I turned 27 this year. I've been doing this for about 4 years now and everything, but I've also spent 4 of those years in COVID. It's been like, okay, well, I'm moseying along, like I'm making enough, I can pay my bills. Like, it's not, I've never worked a traditional 9 to 5 job like my friend who went and got his MBA or anything. I kind of dropped out to do this.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this strong for the past 4 years and everything. And so I think what I like about relatable and repeatable is that people have time, and that as long as you can understand how to focus and how to lock in, you have the ability to say, okay, I'm 32. I've done a lot of things. Let me actively now go into things. But you also have shown your experience in having a down market, having an up market, and being through things that are unprecedented. So on top of that, not only have you taken a less traditional route than what most people would say, I went out of college, I did, went work, did all of this other stuff, and I made VP at 30 years old, versus the newer kind of generation is like, I'm going to backpack for a year. I'm going to go take odd jobs here, find myself and things like that. You kind of blended both and were able to get the best of, I messed around, I got my education, I got my master's, and I'm still now running a high powered real estate firm. And listen, there's nothing better than that. So you had mentioned that during that time of 08 to 012, you would not have listened to the advice of your father if you could go back. But if you could go back, what would you tell your younger self to do during that time? Outside of obviously doubling down.
Buy everything. Buy everything. No, I mean, I would, so focus more on actually learning the business and understanding. Because I mean, I got to 2013 and hadn't done a transaction. I had my license for 6 years and had never transacted anything. Now I did property management, which was good because in 2014 I bought my first investment property before I even bought a house. And I was flipping cars. I forgot about that. I've owned 46 vehicles, and I started 42 of them since 2010. So I used that cash that I was flipping cars to buy my first investment property. And I'd already gone through eviction processes with other people's properties. So I felt very comfortable running my own without having to have a property manager because I knew what to anticipate. Mm-hmm. And now I've partnered with a property management company based out of Philly, and they do the day-to-day property management, and I handle the, getting the property rented. So it's one of those things where you look back and you go, shit, that was a good learning lesson. It wasn't a total waste of time to do the property management, because now I understand that business more than I would have if I just started now. I already understand a lot of that process.
Okay. That's absolutely amazing. We have a little bit of like less than a minute before it's going to like drop us, but man, you have been absolutely amazing. I'm going to edit this up, make sure I get you the copy, as well as the social media clips and everything. And I think I'd like to have you as maybe a regular guest occasionally to keep talking about the real estate market and maybe build some kind of synergy in a relationship here.
I'm down, man. Hit me up.
All right. So again, Ramblers, you have been here to witness Trad Bastian. We will see you next time, next week, and tomorrow.